So, I just wanted to preface the kind of the talk just a little bit by just starting by anything that I'm going to say and share. It's just my experience and just my opinion. Even if I'll try to kind of talk in a way that makes that clear, but if I sound like I'm sharing a fact, is again, just remember it's 100% just my opinion. And whatever you need to do, like if you need to go walk around listening to it, whatever you need to be safe and feel safe, just do that. My name is Mikael Roussel. I'm like a Franco-Norwegian. Um, Grew up in France and moved to Norway for about like what, 20 years ago now. I'm just gonna uh, the way I'm gonna talk about my experience now is I'm gonna it's for me it happened in three parts. So I'm gonna talk about the three parts, and then the fourth part will be more of a what I got out of it and maybe kind of tips for people that are in similar situations and either going in a situation like this or coming out of it. So let's go. Um, just to preface my story, I think I've always been a very emotional kid. Uh, I felt things very heavily and very deeply. I mean, like both in a good sense and in a bad sense. I mean, like I used to be very like loving. I would love very easy and also get my heart broken very easy, whether it was like friendships, stuff like that. And I think my parents did not have the capacity to understand or to manage that kind of emotionality. Also because it was very, I mean, like I didn't have the words to put on it, right? I didn't understand what was going on, and I always felt I was too much and I was too weak almost. Like it was, I was too emotional, and it was kind of a bother for people. And again, my parents were quite strict as we were growing up, especially my father. And I would actually call my father quite emotional as well. It's just he showed emotions in a different way, and he would have explosions of emotions, and then we wouldn't ever talk about what happened. It was just something happened, and then my mom was kind of pretending that everything was fine. So you could have like super like my father would yell and call you stuff, and then the next minute is like, hey, come to eat, and then we would just all sit by the dinner table and have a meal as if nothing happened. And so I think this for me created a very unstable environment. Um, and so I never felt like I could really talk about these things with them anyway. Uh, and so I started developing this thing where it's just quite early on, I would start talking to myself the way I wanted to be talked to, but just in my head. I technically started creating a world inside of my head that felt safe so that I could, um, yeah, so if I was alone, I would be like, oh, it's okay, and it's okay to cry. And I'm saying this because I think it's kind of important for what is to come after. Um, and one very big part of the development of this voice was my grandma, because we lived in the same house. And she was kind of the whole, like the opposite. She was super loving. She was so soft. Like there was almost nothing I could do that would be wrong from her perspective. At least that's how it felt. It was like no matter what I said, if I was angry, if I was sad, she was always accepting of me. And so I lived and grew up in France for like until I was around 16, and then we moved to Norway. So already there was a split from having my grandma as the safety point to leaving her. And a few years after that, we discovered that she had cancer, and then like a week before she died, technically. We just came to France to say goodbye. And I think this for me was one of the heaviest and most traumatic experiences I've ever had to this day. Because I really remember this coming into the room. And by that point, just like being like a young, like a growing child, man, all my emotions got bottled up. It was like I never cried, never showed emotion to anyone. And coming into her room, I remember this, all these feelings coming up and having no idea what to do with it. Just this, like, what is this? What, like, no, I never cried in front of my family when we were there. And I also remember this realization of we're all going to die and nobody can do anything about it, right? It's just really this, like, being hit with the realization that even my parents that were kind of the authority figures slash the heroes, especially my father, like the person that would kind of fix all the problems, right? There's like no problems too big for mom or dad to fix it. To see them so powerless in this situation created a split. I think I remember this feeling of I started writing a book about it, and in that I describe it as like like how do you call it, like in French we call it a fissure, which is like a crack, yeah, a crack in the walls of my house. It's like the first crack that happened was there, like this feeling of the infinity of life and the universe just suddenly started seeping in into my ego almost. And I remember this is too big, I can't handle it. And but I realized it and I don't know what to do with it. And there's nobody I can talk about it to because my parents, we don't talk about feelings. We don't talk about hard stuff. We talk about facts. If we're talking about like my grandma being sick, it was she's sick, so it means that she's gonna lose her hair and then she's probably gonna die. That's kind of the extent of the conversation that we had. And we have to get there this time, we have to leave at this time. Um, and I remember going home and my girlfriend at the time, like we were just sitting in the dark and I had written a song to my grandma. And I remember just sitting and playing the song and then realize, like noticing I'm gonna break. And my girlfriend at the time, he like, "Are you okay?" And it was the first time in my whole life when someone asked me if I was doing fine, where I said no. And I remember like really, really breaking down at this point. And I think that and the in like the fact that I couldn't process it kind of started leading me to using drugs. And also like I mean during that time doing drugs was cool, you know, like when you're 20 and you're like kind of I was reading a lot of Hunter S. Thompson where drugs like this, oh wow, we're gonna explore yourself and like yeah, this cool, yeah, this kind of in quote cool way of being. But it was kind of a really fucking weird period because my girlfriend got pregnant, but she decided to take an abortion. My mother was really fucking cold about the whole thing. So I felt 100% alone, right? So, and I think in that, I started developing this weird thing in my sleep where I would wake up in a dream, but like, you know, I couldn't move my body, but I was awake in a dream. Um, and then, so I would flip out because I was like, fuck, am I gonna be stuck there for, because like time in dream, like time perception, at least in dream can seem very distorted. So I was afraid of like, am I gonna be there for like 1,000 years before I get to wake up? And so I learned this weird thing. I just developed it after some time just to, I would manage to wake myself up like completely. It felt like I was dragging myself out of sleep almost. And one day we were doing a lot of drugs. Like I was just smoking and eating like space cakes. And I was doing a lot of drugs. And I remember waking up in the, no, 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 sorry. I remember just sitting with some friends and having the same moment of like, oh yeah, but I'm just dreaming. Uh, and then so I tried this technique of trying to wake myself up, but it wouldn't work because I wasn't sleeping. And I think this kind of also deepened this, how do I call it? Like the my understanding of what reality was, right? Suddenly was like, what is what is reality? And I think I lost touch with physical touch technically, right? Which is what kind of anchors you, because I've always been an overthinker. So the more drug I took, the more deeply into my mind I kind of went until one point where I was with again a friend, and I was highly depressed, and I was drinking too much, doing too much drugs, and sleeping way too little. And I remember this. I was going to a concert, and I remember just we wanted to do like to eat like a space case, which is technically like eating, like you put. I'm not gonna. Think, I don't know if this is going on YouTube. Maybe I shouldn't talk too much about the specifics of it. But anyway, we took some drugs, and as one does, I thought because when you eat it, it doesn't process the same. It can take some more time, and as a very I took way too much because I thought like I'm not high. I should take more. So I ate way, way, way too much. And I remember just as it started, I was like, fuck, I took too much. I just the moment when it kicked in, I knew I'm fucked. And so I remember just walking to the tram. We were gonna take a tram to go to the city. And as I was standing there, I went out of my body and I was looking into myself and into my eyes, and in my eyes I could see myself, and it would go like for infinity. And so I started panicking a bit, but I had this voice in my head. It was like, yeah, but this is just a dream, and if it's a dream, then I'm in control. So weirdly, this kind of, at least at this very moment, kind of helped me relax for a while. And then when we arrived to the place where we gonna watch the concert, the moment they started the concert, I was like blown away. I was the way I remember it, and I must say it's. I don't know if it actually happened or if it's just like the more I tell the story, the more it wraps into something else. But the way I remember it, at least, it was I went out of my body and I could zoom in to everything around me, and I could almost see like atoms vibrating. Uh, and I remember this feeling of I've seen something that I shouldn't have seen. It's like almost as if I entered like the computer room, like like I went behind the screen of life, and I shouldn't have, because now I know something that is going to destroy me in a sense, right? And I remember this thought, sorry, that came that was now I have to die. I've seen something I should have seen, and now I have to die. So of course I flipped, had a panic attack. I was with my brother who helped, like we just went home, and during this whole time I was like full on panic attack. And just the whole way home, I'm just walking, and after some time it felt like my sight was split in two. So the upper half was just normal, and the under half, like the lower half, was atoms. Just everything was just like a lot of little balls just flying around. And I remember thinking, I broke my brain and now I'm fucked. From this point on, like this is how I'm just gonna have to figure out a way how to work with that, because this is how my life is gonna be from now on. Um, and I remember also coming home and of course being like panicked, but as emotionally oppressed man will do, I tried to be cool about it, be like, hey, this is fun. And I remember going into my room again, full panic attack, and I didn't know, because I would close my eyes and have a very clear picture of the room, and I would open my eyes and the picture seemed as clear. So after some time, I didn't know if my eyes were open or closed, which was also kind of fucked up. And I remember this feeling, which is a feeling that kind of came with me along the way, which was I have no control over this. uh, I don't have control over the experience, but it's also I have no control over life, and like I have stepped into a different side of existence, and from now on, I have no control. Um, so from that point on, I remember just trying to talk about it with friends, and most friends just going, "Yeah, but you were just high," which they were right, but is the repercussions of this high. I was in it for at least 2 weeks, where I would just kind of go in and out of at least the anxiety part of it. And I remember feeling very alone because I mean, like the people that I like, my brother and this friend that I was living with, the way they approached it was more like judgmental, like you shouldn't have done that much drugs, and this is kind of stupid, and la la la, you're kind of overreacting. And and other people, they just didn't understand. I think there were a lot of stigma around doing drugs, which made it very hard to talk about because a lot of the friends that I had around me were kind of, but why do you do drugs? Why do you do drugs? Like so, and I definitely couldn't talk about it with my parents because they would flip. And and one day, suddenly, I had this friend who used to do a lot of drugs as well, and then got into spirituality. And I remember we just talking with him. Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna just say a little thing before that. Then after that, for some reason, I thought maybe Christian people could help me, like religious people could help me, right? So I spent actually kind of a long time hanging out with Christian people, like going to Bible meeting, and I wouldn't read the Bible. I didn't become religious, but I found that explaining my experience to them, weirdly, that they took it really, at least from all of it, the other people that I was talking to, they were the first ones to be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, so it sounds like you had a religious experience," which felt like I was getting closer to being understood, at least. Um, and then this friend that I talked about, I remember I think he just, like, was, "Hey, how are you doing? I'm good, and you?" And then he sent me a video of this guy called Sadhguru. And in this video, the guy was saying, and I'm calling him a guy, but with intention, not a guru. Anyway, he sent me this video of this guy talking about his what they call like the enlightenment experience, where he was just sitting on this stone, and suddenly he became the whole universe. He was like seeing atoms everywhere, which is like everything was just vibration. And I remember thinking of, hey, that sounds a lot like what I went through. And so from that point on, I kind of became obsessed with it because it made me feel like I wasn't, or I guess it made me feel special, right? I went from being this guy that does drugs and everybody's judging to, oh, wow, did I just have an enlightenment experience, which is super cool and super special, apparently. And so from that point on, I really started diving into that. And I will say I have definitely obsessive tendencies where, like, if I start liking something, everything else disappears, and I have to do it the right way. And if I don't do it the right way, then I'll judge myself and I'll be very hard on myself about that. And so I started doing this. And then, of course, I also became a vegan because that's the only way to be spiritual. Um, And from then on, I think things took a turn for the much worse, although I didn't see it at that time. Because I mean, like the vegan diet didn't really work well for me. But again, I had to be spiritual, and to be spiritual, I had to be a vegan. Um, because, okay, so now I'm going to enter a phase of, I'm going to try to not talk too much shit, but there's a lot of things that in retrospect, I find very unhealthy in that individual, a Sadhguru, because one of the things that I struggle the most with being someone who wants to do things right, if people kind of pretend to give you like you do what you want kind of approach, but there's actually a lot of underlying shaming of it. You know, like this, yeah, if you want to do that, you do it, but good people don't. You know what I mean? It's like it's yeah, you do what you want, but if you want to be a good spiritual person, you wouldn't do that. I find it technically very infantilizing, and at the time, it would work really well on me because again, I had this need to prove that I was good and that I was worthy. And so it took me for kind of a spin, but one of the good things is that I stopped doing drugs at least. So I was kind of uh, clean, let's call it, for a year. And during that time, so I was doing a lot of meditation, but it was intense meditation in the sense of I wanted to become enlightened. And Sadhguru, one of the things that I've heard him talk about that I don't really hear anyone else talk about is that the the goal of the goal of spirituality, at least from his point of view, at least from the videos that I've watched at that time, is something that is called I don't remember the exact name of it, but I think it's Mahamudra, which is like leaving the body, right? What you want is to become so enlightened that you just leave the body and you leave everything behind and you go back to becoming one with whatever source. So that got into my head, right? That the only real goal of spirituality is not just enlightenment in the sense of, oh, now I'm peaceful and everything is nice, is I will leave my body, right? And not just I will leave my body, but I don't exist. And I have to realize that. So to become just one with the universe. Um, so I spent a lot of time trying to do that. I remember just going into the woods, of course, and sitting there for hours on end and just trying to disappear. Which, yeah, again, in retrospect, is really freaking everything that I say out loud now is it's so weird that I did it. And I will have a part of what I call shit talking in the end, just where I go through the part that I find illogical. But for now, I'm just gonna continue the story. And so I spent a lot of time doing that, and I remember just feeling almost like superior to people that just wanted to feel good. I was just like, this is such an ego thing, right? Because of course your ego wants to be alive. Of course your ego wants to feel good. Of course you wouldn't want to become one with the universe because like yeah, you just technically just a fucking loser, right? So, like, but that's also the way I would talk to myself, right? Anytime there was something I liked, it was like, of course you would say that because you don't want to disappear, right? You just right now you're just being a loser, and you just have to accept that again, anything that is a want, anything that is a love is a weakness, and I have to get rid of it. So anything that's positive is weakness, and anything that's negative is weakness as well. Just the same specter, like anything that you like, you shouldn't. Anything that you don't like, you shouldn't. Um, and so I spent a lot of time again in that mentality. And at first, from my perspective, it was a good thing, right? Because I was working towards a goal. I had a goal, and so I even got because he has this kind of his brand of meditation. He called it a Shambhavi Mahamudra, I think, and it's just this breathing technique, right? But you have to be initiated by him, of course, because nobody else can teach you that. So uh, I had like I created kind of an event, so I made them come to Bergen. So I organized everything, had everybody come and find people to come there, uh, and we did the whole thing. And I remember just it's so weird because I remember during this whole the retreat, let's call it, a part of me was like, "Man, this is just bullshit." I mean, like almost being disappointed in it. But the part of me that wanted to believe it really was so strong that, uh, yeah, that all the questions, all the things that I had that just didn't really make sense, I just had to push them aside as ego, right? Just me, my ego trying to be more important than this, technically like God incarnated, right? And I remember the initiation. We were just sitting in this room, and it was just a video of him just going through the meditation technically, right? And we were supposed to be like, oh my God, this is so amazing. And everybody had like a strong experience. And after the end, we were all, and it's weird because what I noticed now, looking back, is I think we all wanted, it's like, I don't know if you heard Darren Brown talking about how it is to hypnotize people on stage. It's like 90% of it is just people don't want to disappoint, right? You don't want to disappoint the people around you. So I think a lot of us, we were just like, oh, it was so amazing. And the moment someone says it's amazing, you have to say it's amazing because what else are you going to say, right? You want to be spiritually evolved. So you can't say, oh, I didn't feel anything because that means that you're not connected to whatever source. Um, and so I was really into that for a while, kind of obsessively into that. And then I had a second break, which was very similar to the drug one. And I remember I was in my ex-girlfriend's bedroom, and we were just talking about something. And I remember this almost like someone was inside my body and just dragged me back, like so. Yeah, I had like a yeah, like weird, like as if I just was dragged back, and suddenly again panic attack. Because it felt like I think the thought that came up was I don't exist. And it felt so strong, and I felt so suddenly I felt so loose in my body, like there was nothing to hold on to anymore. And so I remember, because of one of the things that Sadhguru says, which is if you get enlightened at the wrong time, if you're not like you haven't worked for many years doing yoga and asanas and whatever, then you might leave your body without wanting to, and then your soul will be like in fucking limbo because you don't know how to get a new body and everything. And so I remember having this, oh fuck, once again, I've stepped into a world that I don't know enough about, and now I've lost control again, and I remember for a long time, I couldn't relax because I thought if I relax too much, if I enjoy myself too much, if I relax too much, if I'm not constantly thinking, I will disappear. Um, I will just, yeah, like poof, suddenly. Like, and I genuinely believed it. I think for the people that haven't experienced it, it's weird because it's like, yeah, but you won't disappear. But I 100% believed that I will disappear. It wasn't like a metaphorical disappearance. It was like I will disappear. And for from this point on, I think I had about at least 3 years where this was like I was like this every day from the moment I wake up to the moment I fell asleep. I felt like I was going to disappear if I relaxed. And anytime I was outside, it was as if I was being kind of sucked out of my body, and at the same time, it was kind of this. I felt like everything was just sucking me into like the space technically, and there was also the infinite inside of me where everything would be sucked in. So again, I felt very unstable, and I felt like I had to find things like almost like I had to build my ego, because if I had an ego, I couldn't be enlightened, and if I wasn't enlightened, I couldn't disappear. So I was trying to think a lot of things because I thought like, well, thought is ego in a sense, right? So if I have thoughts, it means I'm not enlightened, which means I can at least for some time try to figure out how to get back into my body. And I would buy like, jewelry, because he was saying stuff like if you have like a bracelets here and there, then it keeps you into your body. So I would do that as well. And then another side of this was I started having a lot of rules, right? Because I didn't want to be enlightened, but at the same time, I didn't want to be human. Uh, so I couldn't be in a relationship, but I was in a relationship. So I was really going back and forth with this one. I couldn't enjoy myself. I couldn't watch movies. I couldn't read books that wasn't spiritual books. I couldn't have sex. I couldn't eat whatever I wanted to eat. Uh, and so I was really kind of tightening my, Like this little box was becoming smaller and smaller with time. I just had more and more rules. And again, I was really obsessive about it, and I would break those rules all the time. And each time I broke them, I would kind of shame myself, and I would feel like shit, technically. And so yeah, I spent a lot of time doing that. Again, at least 3 years, and then from the 3 years up and for 7 more years, I was more in and out of it. One of the first things that started helping me is actually discovering Adyashanti. And for me, now looking back, he's still very into like the kind of weird, super unclear spirituality. But what I liked about him is like he was very human about it, at least. So there was a sense of it where it's more about ordinary life, which for me, at least at the time, really helped me because it was kind of finding because at that time before I found Adyashanti, I was 100% sure I had to become a monk. Right? It was like fuck it, now I should just go to India and shave my head and become a monk. Um, and so yeah, finding Adyashanti and finding the spirituality in the everyday life was kind of one of the first steps towards getting better. And I remember at the time I also had this guy, like an Indian guy who was a friend of the one who introduced me to Sadhguru. And he was very intense. He was like very, what I would call now, very religious, right? There's like he kind of reinforced all those almost neuroses that I had. Like you cannot do this, you cannot do that. You have to have a guru. That was one of his big thing. You have to have a guru. There's no way that you're gonna make it if you don't have a guru, and you have to have one guru. And once you have one guru, you cannot listen to anybody else, right? During that time is when I discovered Adyashanti, and so him being like, no, 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 you cannot, you have to find one person. Uh, I remember it was one of the first times when I was like, but this doesn't make sense. It's helping me to have several kind of aspects of spirituality that I can take from. And so I remember I was in a kind of a group chat with him and other people, and I remember leaving that group chat being like, this is not for me, I'm sorry, bye. Which felt really good because it was, again, one of the first time I started to empower myself. And that kind of led to different things. One is we went to India to Sadhguru, he had like this, what is it called? Oh, I don't remember the name of it, but we went, like he was going to put energy in like a physical form so that everybody could meditate better or whatever. And I remember being there with my little brother who helped me a lot because we were just cracking a lot of jokes about Sadhguru and like a lot of how things were set up and the pictures that they had of him. As one of them looked, it could almost have been like the cover for a rap album, and so we made a lot of jokes about that. And just being able to break the seriousness of it really helped. And also, I think being there and seeing how I mean, I'm not saying it's a cult, but it definitely felt cult-ish. You know, like being there and the people around him and how they spoke about him as if he was, like, I mean, I remember word for word someone say, he's God incarnated. Like God came down to earth and now he's like the avatar of God. And I remember at that moment thinking like, but he's just a dude. I mean, like he's a dude with some insight, yes, but it feels like he's just a dude. And I remember just being there, and everybody was like, "Oh, once you meet him, he's gonna he'll give you so much energy, and you're gonna feel it up and down your spine." And I remember seeing him, and at that time I was a big fan of him, right? And seeing him and feeling absolutely nothing. It was just here's just a dude in a turban walking past me. I really wanted to be so special, and it wasn't. So I think that also kind of made me like, okay. Um, but I think the hard part about this time of slowly but surely wanting to get out of it is I had nothing to replace it. I didn't have the language, like another kind of language, anything that or any way for me to talk about it was through spiritual language. So what I was going through wasn't just in like whatever experience, it was enlightenment. And then we had like you had to work on your chakras, la la la, all this. Anything that I was trying to like anytime I tried to broke away from it, it was it was always kind of bringing me back because no matter how many, because I started reading about Taoism and Zen Buddhism and finding other people like I mean like Adyashanti is one of them. Then there is Thich Nhat Hanh. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but people that were more, let's call it down to earth in a sense, even if like again in retrospect there still are a lot of aspects that to me don't make sense. So it was kind of a softer form of spirituality with not as many rules, but I always felt, and that might be just me, my kind of personality, but I always felt that there is a way to be and there is a way to not be. And if you are this way, it's not really spiritual. You can be that way, it's okay, but there's a better way to be. There's always a better way to be. And no matter what you do, it's always to become better. And I think that is also the thing that I really struggled the most with. It was like uh, anything that I do is technically to bring me to this thing of leaving my body, right? And it's just a bunch of people trying to trick me into doing that uh, by meditating or whatever. And no matter how they phrase it, no matter how they say, yeah, but you can be with your friends, because it was always this, you can do that, but do it like that, right? It was always, you can have friends, but be present with your friends. Yeah, you can watch a movie, but don't try to escape reality. Yes, you can do it, but la 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 la. What? Which was always an underlying kind of a soft shaming of whatever it is that you wanted to do if you didn't do it with the right intention. Which for me, in the long run, again, having this kind of obsessive mind really broke me down. And so I had periods of time when I would be a bit better, but I always fell back into this kind of I could be better. Not only I could, but I should be better, right? Uh, and so again, and it's strange to look back on it because it was the moment because I would always have like kind of a soft moment, and then I could feel it kind of my obsession would become more intense. So I would go up, 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 and then I would hit a peak. And this peak felt like, well, to get it back to Hunter S. Thompson, is like he describes the fear, which is like it's fear, but like on steroids. It's like it's such an intense fear that I almost don't feel anything anymore, right? It's just like I feel this. I feel like I'm gonna be swallowed up. I feel like there's no safe space. I feel like I almost like fall like free falling. Uh, Super intense, and then from this point on I would be depressed and anxious for like a month or two until I managed to build back up to like an ish normal way of being, and then it would be build up, build up, build up, build up, and then poof again. And so that would happen like every 4 months ish. And again, I always remember this feeling of I'm only trying to push the fact that I have to leave my body, right? I'm just pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and trying to find almost excuses not to. And even if it wasn't necessarily in the forefront, it was always in the back of my head, like, oh, now I'm having a good time, but I'm just pretending because I just don't want to disappear, so this is why I'm doing it. And then I discovered a Cheetah House, and so it started with like a podcast. It was Dr. Willoughby Britton on the Scott Carney, I think it's called. And it was like I remember just reading the title of like this negative side effects of meditation, I think something like this. And I remember this what something like in quote negative about meditation. What do you like? Now that sounds interesting. And so I remember just yeah listening to this one, and then there's one with Tim Ferriss, and then technically anything that was a podcast with Willoughby I just listened to. And I remember just having this like, whoa, what the like, what? Someone else is talking about all the oh, someone is confirming all the kind of thoughts that I had around spirituality and meditation. And I remember also then I found like again Cheetah House and the website, and just going through all the letters to my former self and having other people almost, I mean, like the way I remember it, almost word for word say the things that I've said to other people about my experience, and being met with like, hey, what the fuck is that? Uh, and having this feeling of, but I'm not completely crazy. I mean, like, at least I'm not alone in being completely crazy. And that just that in and of itself is pretty sweet. And I remember also listening to, I don't remember his name, sadly, but there was someone who was with Cheetah in the beginning, and he also was on one of the podcasts, and him starting to ask questions around spiritual experiences. How can you know, or meditation experiences, how can you know what is from what you've been told? And because there's so many things that we're told, like, you're gonna experience this. This is what you should be experiencing. And how can we not be how can we not be sure that this doesn't influence the experience that we're going to have, right? And just these kind of questions, which kind of leads me to the last part of my talk, which is all these questions, all the logical inconsistencies, right? Of having, for example, like someone like Adi Ashanti, which I think again is one of the milder versions of it, but saying something like, "Yeah, I have no thoughts." Okay, and then next I would hear him, "Oh yeah, I was thinking about it." Like, wait, what? But you said you have no thoughts, and then you said I was thinking about that. For me, it's like, for me, this is a logical inconsistency. Like, what do you mean? Do you have thoughts or do you not have thoughts? Which one is it? Because at least in my head, it cannot be both, right? Um, and also starting to realize that the Sadhguru guy, he had so many things that was just factually incorrect, right? He would say, like, if you sleep with your head to the north or whatever, south, then the metal in your because of the magnets of Earth, the metal in your body would go to your brain, and you can get an aneurysm or something like this. Which of course is like, what the fuck are you talking about? But like, someone who is in quote God cannot be wrong, so you wouldn't question it. But there's so many aspects of it that were like, it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. And this thing, even the thing with leaving the body, he's the only one who talks about it. And I really went into like research, trying to check out if anybody else talked about it like he did. Nobody did. Um, so there was, and just a little bit more shit talk about him, and then I'll move on. But there's also a lot of things where he said that he learned yoga, that he never learned yoga. He was just, oh, wait, he had this super simple yoga thing that he learned from a yogi, and then all the things that he offered in his Isha, like the Isha courses and everything, he just came to him, right, in meditation or whatever. And then turns out that he went to a yoga school to become a yoga teacher for 3 years, I think. And all the things that he teaches in his school are different versions of what this other school has. And just that in and of itself, for me, crumbles the whole fucking guy, right? How can you say that this guy is God if he said that he didn't learn yoga, but he went to school to learn yoga? And if you are God, why the fuck would you go to school to learn yoga? It's like so many aspects of it that for me made no sense. That once I found Cheetah House, I felt like uh, I was not only allowed to really, really feel it, because I've been feeling it, but I always felt ashamed that it was my ego that was doing it. And then suddenly having this like, but it is bullshit. Okay, but thank you. Now I know it is bullshit. And from this point on, there's something that just switched in my brain. And I haven't had any panic attack, at least, or actually any panic attack since then. And now, one of the things that I started developing, like kind of, I don't know if it's like right to call them tips, but just more things that I've started developing after some time, is just I can I'm allowed to tell my that part of myself, the obsessive part, to shut up. It's okay, because I've always tried to be like, oh, any voice I have to listen to, all the voices in my head. It's like, no, no, no. Some voices are not here to help me, or at least are not helping me anymore. And for me, these thoughts that all like the only thing they do is send me in a like anxiety spiral. I can tell them to shut the fuck up, and it's okay. It's like this. I don't need you. Shut the fuck up. I know what you're doing, trying to do, but we're done with that. That has helped me a lot. And again, just realizing that these people, they might have some insight that we don't have, but we have also insight that they don't have. And I think it's just this not not devalue ourselves just because someone told us that this person is more valuable than us. Because there's so many things that we take for granted and almost. I mean, there's so many stories that I heard about him that I just believed. I had no reason to believe it other than people told me, and he wrote a fucking book, and so we have to believe it. Like, no matter how crazy the stories were, I never asked questions about it because, again, it's my ego, whatever. Um, so yeah, so the realization of just, and I mean, like hindsight is 2020, but it's now just realizing that I don't have to take anybody's word for granted, and to be able to stand in that, and to I've used anger a lot the past year to just first and foremost really cut ties to anything that has to do with spirituality. And the few times when I'm talking to people that still are in the spiritual world, I won't be like, it's not that I'm not nice about it, but before I was always, oh yeah, no, but I can see what you mean. Now it's like, no, 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 this is bullshit. I don't want to fucking listen to it. If you want to talk to me, then this is how it's gonna be. Like, yeah, if you say something that is not logical, I'll say that's not logical and that's bullshit. And whether you want to believe it or not, I don't give a fuck. It's almost like this um, went from like letting the door open for the possibility of it to it doesn't make sense. I have no patience for it. And I might change. I might kind of, again, be more soft in it with time. But right now, it feels really good to have this. I don't believe in it. To me, it's 100% bullshit. If you want to believe it, fine, but just then let's not talk about that. And I've cut actually a lot of my friends out because they are in spiritual kind of circles. And I think I've spent enough time also because I've been in the coaching industry and the wellness industry, and I just see so much fucking bullshit and so many unquestioned assumptions. And for me, these right now are just yeah, not something that I have any patience for. So so it's been nice to allow myself not to be nuanced in certain aspects because I used to be very like I have to be nuanced, I have to understand everyone, and I forgot that I'm also a human being in that, and I forgot my part of it. So so to allow myself here to just be almost in, let's call it in quote, unreasonable, very nice. And some of the things that been doing to kind of get out of it, like the need to be perfect, is do a lot of the things that, like, no, I have once a week, a friend and I will eat fast food and watch reality TV and talk shit. And it's about how much shit can we talk, like um, how far can I push it almost. Um, And I really like it. I mean, like it's these kind of things, and I'm started to work out much more, and I've started to like kind of play much more with how I look and explore much more the different aspects of myself. And I'm having a great time. And I'm thinking that now my parting words will be, um, I don't think anybody knows what the fuck is happening on this earth, and I'm good with that. And I'll just figure it out for myself and myself only. I don't have to figure out anything for anyone else, and I don't have to let anyone else figure anything else for me. And I feel good about that. I mean, like that's something I can live with. So yeah, that's my story. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mikael. We have some
Thank you.
time for discussion questions. I mean, I was taking notes and I have a couple things that I highlighted that I thought were sort of interesting. Um, One of the first things I highlighted was it made me feel special.
Mm,
And I'm wondering, like, I hear that a lot. I think it's a really powerful drug.
mm,
Just I just wanted to hear your thoughts about that because it seems like that's really what pulled you in that direction. Like, the difference in appraisal about your prior experience to some extent was pejorative and like you're just a drug user and then there was this whole other world where you weren't a loser, you were special. And like
mm.
how much did that, yeah, just I don't know if thoughts about that part.
Yeah, so the thing is, I've always had again at school and anything, and I was never the cool kid, but I always perceived myself as just people just don't know that I'm cool, but I think I'm pretty cool. You know, I mean, there's kind of this feeling of I don't think I'm that much of a loser as people see me as. And so when the spiritual thing started, I really started to feel like now I'm going to prove it to people, right? I'm going to prove that I am not a loser. And once I become a guru, because in my head, of course, I was going to become enlightened and become a guru, um, then people will see that I am special after all, right? I'm not just a drug addict almost. So it definitely was a big driver. But the weird part is, it's like one of these things where you know it, but I don't know it. It's there. It is the drive, like a big part of the driving force, but it's almost so obvious that I don't see it, right? It's just such a big part of the drive that I wasn't aware that I was doing it because of it, but it was, and even looking to the part of I was going to leave my body up until the time where I actually had my psychotic break. I didn't really believe that. You know what I mean? Like it was more something to say that made me more special, almost, right? It was like this, uh, almost like I could do it, but I won't do it because like I have to stay back on Earth to help the poor little human that don't know anything about life, almost. Uh, and I think also kind of the funny part about it is that uh, I really believed it until the moment I had my psychotic break, and the moment I broke all this all this specialness. Because one of the things I didn't say during the talk is just I remember just wanting to be normal, right? So I wanting to be so special, break, and then I just want to be normal. I want to be someone that nobody looks at. I just want to just be like live the most normal life that a human being could have almost. So it was just fucking bullshit. It was just again like a weird ego trip almost.
And the second thing that I highlighted was you don't want to disappoint people. And that
Mm.
was another, I mean, it's really the same thing, right? It's like
Yeah.
that other people's opinions of you are somehow like impacting you so deeply that they're driving your actions. And it sounds like you extricated yourself from both of sides of that
Mm.
eventually. And it sounds like the psychotic break was part of that, I guess, just because you're like, I don't want to be special anymore. But were
Yeah.
you also like, I don't care if I disappoint people?
No, not at that time. But because the weird part is even after the psychotic break, I did feel a bit special. Because okay, one thing that always has been like with me is the fact that I'm very good, or at least like I'm good at talking about my feelings, right? I've never been really good at being in the presence of somebody else and feeling my feelings, but I'm good at reflecting around my feelings and talking about it. And so this has always been something that people were like, oh, wow, that's good. So once I became spiritual, then it was that times 10, right? Because then suddenly, not only was I good at talking about my feelings, but I could explain quite complex spiritual like concepts in a very simple way, and I could like go into this deep la la la. So that made me feel even more special. And once the psychotic break happened, and I just started learning the words to use, like, how to talk about it. I think some people were like, "This guy is weird," and some people were like, "Oh my God," let's call it like the plain spiritual people that haven't really done anything, but that just like reading like Eckhart Tolle kind of stuff. They were like, "Oh my God, this is so deep," and so I got a little bit of like juice out of that as well, right? It was just this. Because I remember, for example, during the retreat, like at the end, everybody would go and talk and talk about the experience. And I remember, so weird to think about, but I remember everybody talking about it, and I wanted to go last because I thought I have the best story. Like I'm going to be the best to explain it. It's just going to be so much better when I talk about it. So in that sense, I still felt special, um, and I didn't want to, yeah, in a sense, I still didn't want to disappoint because I think for me, the moment when this really, like the need to prove myself to people really, really, really broke, and to prove myself to myself as well, or at least to some imaginary person that I've never met. That happened the first time I heard about you. Then that's the moment because you kind of have this vibe of I do what I want, fuck you. Like, I remember just some of your comments. I don't remember if it was Scott Carney. You had some comment about journalists asking questions in a way that was like they were always wanted to get something out of it. And I remember thinking like, nice, I really like this fuck you, like this. I don't give a fuck. I'm here to answer questions, but I won't do it the way you want me to do it. And this for me really was like I've always had this part of me in myself, but during that period of time, it just really broke, right? I mean, and meaning from I think especially the death of my grandma. I think this up until like a year ago, I've slowly but surely lost that side of myself because I mean, like as a teenager, I would tell grown up to fuck off, like if they talk to me in a way that I felt was like, oh, what the fuck? I wouldn't like it, fuck you. And I would like have to remember that they're much bigger and stronger than me, but I didn't really care. And then seeing you do it kind of, yeah, awoken this part of myself again.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. I'm glad.
Yeah.
So you use the term psychotic break to describe your experience, and that term can be like literal sort of definition diagnosis, and that can also just be a placeholder for just like, general altered states of consciousness, instability, whatever. So, how close to like actual psychosis do you think you were? Did you ever seek treatment? Did you ever need medication? Did you ever see a doctor?
So it's hard. Part of me finds it hard to answer because I never seeked any help. I never got any kind of a diagnosis for it because it wasn't spiritual, of course. But I mean, I was 100% convinced that one, I don't exist. I'm not willing to let that, like the thoughts go. And I mean, like, spent again 3 years where every day I was afraid of disappearing. So to me, it sounds like an actual psychotic break, but it's just. I've been so used to not sharing, like because I've dealt with depression and anxiety my whole life, and I always kept it to myself. At least again, the feeling experience of it, right? It's always been just me alone in a room almost. Um, that I think I'm just become very good at compartmentalizing, like not just like all the pieces that shattered, I just kind of pretend that everything is good. Because technically, I mean, like, still had a job. I woke up every day at the same time. So I was functioning, but I remember a lot of times when like I was talking to people and then I would be gone. Like I would just have this super heavy anxiety that was so intense just in like half a second. And then from this point on, like you could talk to me, I would answer, but I wasn't there. Like I remember just this, it was like again this feeling like now I'm disassociated. And so again, it's hard to know. I have a friend she's a psychiatrist, and she said it does sound like a psychosis. But that's the extent of the diagnosis I've gotten for it. Mm. Thank you. It's been a range. I think different people, and also a range from my part. Like, how I've handled different people because I have one close friend who is closer to the way I see spirituality now, at least, which is it's a kind of a nice. It can be a nice tool in certain ways, or at least it's kind of a several tools put together that then became an ideology. And then whether you like it or not doesn't mean anything, like it doesn't say anything about you. Uh, but she is one of the people that cut out because she started getting involved in a lot of very, very spiritual stuff where, like, anything like the language is very, oh, and we are all the spirit in body incarnated, la 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 la. And anytime she would bring these kind of stuff up for me, it's like, but that is fucking bullshit. I mean, like, it's not necessarily that it's not true, but like, you cannot say it as if it is true because you don't fucking know. So, uh, so I had a break from her for almost a year. And then there's other people that are really spiritual, and um, I think for them it's been tough, right? Because uh, I have a very like when I'm in these moments, I can have a quite intense. I don't. I just say it unfiltered, and so these people have not like I kind of cut them out, but also they never contact me again, right? Which again for me is very nice because I wouldn't have anything to say to them anyway. And then I have this one friend that introduced me to Sadhguru, who is still to this day a very good friend of mine. And with him, we've had a lot of talks, like because he's really, I think he's the only friend that I have that is still really in the spiritual world. But I think the interesting part with him is like he has softened a lot in because I think we used to be quite similar in the sense of we were really strict with ourselves. I mean, like he went to this yoga teacher training with Sadhguru, and so he was doing like 3 or 4 hours of yoga every day, and now he's just meditating like half an hour. But I think he's been an interesting kind of partner to like like this back and forth because I think one of my biggest fear is to be illogical, and not illogical, but to be wrong almost, right? It's just I want to explore every aspect of something before I can say that I know, because I'm always scared of someone saying, "Yeah, but you're wrong because this," and then they have a good point, right? I mean, like always take a good point, but I don't want to be too like sure about something and then found out that I was wrong, right? So if, with him, I got to really explore all these like all of the illogical things that I had in my like all the things that I saw in someone like Sadhguru, and have someone that believes in that, to believe him to be almost God incarnated, to kind of push back, because then I knew that I was right. Like every time we talked, I was like, yeah, I'm 100% sure I'm right. Because he pushes back so much that I have to kind of check my logic. So in that sense, it's been very nice talking to him because it's just reinforced the fact that I think that Sadhguru generally, and I'll say it's like hand on heart, I think he's full of shit, 100% full of shit. I think he's done some nice things for some people, but I mean, like he's a guy who's full of shit that's done nice things for people. And I think there's a lot of them in spirituality where it looks good from the outside, but there's so many fucking holes. And so yeah, that's it.
Another question is kind of to the point of letters to my former self. If you had to give advice to your former self, um, at any point, or to someone else who's, a young person who's interested in altered states, maybe does a lot of drugs, like, um, has similar proclivities, like what would be some advice or tips that, would maybe prevent some of the harm that you got into?
Mm. I would say the first and foremost, at least when it comes to drugs and experiencing, it's not as romantic as it sounds, right? Because I think there is a romanticizing of drugs, and especially, I'm gonna say something I might be wrong, but I feel especially in young men where it's like it's so cool to experience with drugs, and it makes you super interesting. And at least for me, I remember this the fact that we were the guys who did drugs and that's like the girls at school were like, oh, yeah, this is so weird. It made us feel extra cool, right? We were like the cool guys doing drugs. And people like Hunter S. Thompson really play into that kind of mentality where it was like, I mean, like the whole Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Love the movie, love the book, but it was so misleading, right? Because there's a cool aspect of it, and you are like at least for me, I was sitting at home with my friends having fun, watching this, and then thinking that the experience that I'm having watching it is the experience that he's having. You know what I mean? It's like where you romanticize it because you are in a different experience watching it, and so you're kind of projecting that experience onto this other one because the moment it really started kicking in and I really started experiencing things that he talked about, it was completely different. And I think also once you've experienced it, there's no way back. So it's nice thing to know to be prepared that you will transform yourself, and it might not be the transformation that you want to have. Because again, you always think transformation is for the better, right? It's just, I'm going to have a super out of body experience and I'm going to meet God and it's going to be good. It doesn't necessarily go that way. It can go to fucking shit. I mean, like, if I could erase that part of my life, I would, 100%. Like, I've learned how to deal with it. I learned how to live with it. But for me, it's not one of those, yeah, trauma makes you stronger. It's like, like, I would erase it if I could, 100%. So that's one. Number two is, and this one is a hard one to hear from someone who doubts himself or herself, themselves a lot. It's um, it's okay to be wrong, number one, because everybody is fucking wrong to some degree. And again, like nobody's experience is better than yours, right? And nobody's opinions on these experiences, when it comes to the experiences of being alive, nobody knows better than you. And it doesn't mean that you know better than anybody else, but it's just experiences and it's just points of view and it's easy to say, it's harder to hear, I think, but it's one of the most important things to hear going into spirituality, I think, is just it is 100% opinions. There's nothing else but opinions. And I remember this guy is from conspirituality. They were talking about Buddha and his teaching and like kind of talking about the holes in it. And this guy called like the teachings of the Buddha a theory. And I really remember loving the fact that they just call this thing that's supposed to be like the truth a theory. And that is the truth. It is just a theory. It's just someone had experience. He wrote, and actually, even the Buddha, he didn't even write it down. People talked about it for like what 500 years, and then they started writing it down. And no matter how advanced kind of way you have of like telling a story, we all gonna fucking change a story, right? Like no matter how, and we say it in this rhythm, you're gonna change one word, and that one word is gonna be translated in a different way. There's so many aspects of teachings that are completely lost to us. That means it's just 100% a theory and it is okay. I think it's this desperation about being right almost that I had at least that just was so unhealthy. Uh, because it's not only okay to be wrong, it's like you are already wrong, and just by wanting to be so right, you are even more wrong. And that's okay. There's nothing, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or that you're stupid or anything. It just means that you're human. And I think for me, again, having wanting to be perfect, reaching this level of what some would call enlightenment, and then the deep fear that came, it made me also realize how amazing it is to be just human. 100%, like just human. That is it. And there's nothing wrong with it. And just even to say that is it, it's such a reduction of what it actually is to be human, right? And I remember also, which for me was also very important. I listened to this podcast where actually some like Adi Ashanti and other spiritual guys were talking about it, like about their life, and one of them had terminal cancer, and he was the way he shared his story was very human first and foremost, but he was also kind of talking about how he started losing his body and everything. Like the body wouldn't work, and that he missed all the things that he used to do. And I remember this thought kind of hitting me and hit me pretty hard. I think that is also one of the thoughts that helped me out. And it is, if I was to die today, all the things that I would miss are the things that I already have. The life that I have right now is the life that I would like if I knew I had 3 days to live, all the things that I have right now, exactly how it is right now, this is what would break my heart, losing. It wouldn't be all the things I didn't get to do or whatever, all the big plans I had. It's just I have this perfect little life, and this would break my heart to lose. And there's nothing like in a sense, there's nothing special about the life that I have. I just wake up every morning. I like just go for walks in the forest. I'm with my cats and with my girlfriend, and that's it. And so it's kind of this thing that I've been fearing like this during these 10 years of in and out of psychosis. This is the things that I wanted to keep. And that these are the things that I fought so hard for in a sense, right? Which should have told me everything I needed to know about myself. Um, so that's the thing, yeah. In the search for exceptionality, like being amazing, enlightened, and knowing everything, we kind of throw away how amazing it is. And so maybe ask yourself the question: if you were to die tomorrow, what would you actually feel, right? Well, because I don't care about being enlightened. What the fuck does that even mean, right? It's just, and I think for me it was a fear of death, right? It's just if I'm enlightened, which means I have control over my soul or whatever, then I can't really die, right? Because it's kind of a safety net of like whatever you become this like cloud, whatever. So it's just this thing of it. I think it is life is scary, life is ups and downs, and death is scary as fuck, and death is beautiful as well. And there's no escape. I think that's also maybe the last thing I would say to myself, which it sounds very scary, but for me, it's actually now been something that I've found so comforting. There is nowhere for me to go, right? Here I am. I have nowhere else to fucking. I am where I am. That's it, and there is no escape from it. Just and I find it very comforting because I used to fear that I would again disappear. But it's like I am here, right? As long as I'm alive, I ain't going anywhere. So yeah, I think it's again a bit of other place, but that is what I would tell myself at least. Yeah. But also, I just want to kind of spend a little bit of time saying thank you so much for doing what you're doing. I know you know how important it is, but it is so fucking important. I mean, like you genuinely. I don't know if I would have gone all the way, but you 100% saved my mind, 100%. And it's just you guys that did it. I mean, like I've been a part of it, but finding you. and having to do with you, Anna, as well, and talking to you and listening to your the stuff that you're putting out, 100% saved my life. It's like I was, I think I was afraid of how many, like, kind of wondering how many times can I go through it, through the same thing before I just fucking eat a bullet, almost like, it was just how many times can I do the same thing over and over again until I find you, and it was like, boom, fixed, and almost on the day, it's like, boom, done. So I am, yeah. There's no words to express how grateful I am for the work that you are doing. But it is necessary, so necessary. So thank you.
Thank you. And you're now part of like your talk that you just gave and the one you're going to do in a different language.
Mhm.
Those will now be part of, maybe saving someone else's life. So you
Yeah, it's
come
an
full
honor to be a
circle.
part of it.
Yeah.
It's because again, those letters from my to my former self have been going in loops and just like, oh, they say this, oh, they say that, and they had the same experience. And although it's awful to be happy that other people went through it, I mean, like, it's so important. And back to this thing of community, right? It's just how important it is to have people that are talking and thinking the same, right? It's just, yeah, I love it.